Alright. Alright, hi everybody. Sorry it's a minute late. My computer decided to update all of a sudden randomly. My name's Grace, and as of yesterday, I have my bachelor's degree in nutrition from the University of New Hampshire. And I'm currently enrolled in graduate school there in nutritional sciences, and I will be on Facebook Live every Tuesday at noon to talk about all things nutrition. So please comment all your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them as they come in. So today I wanted to talk about fat. So if you tuned in last week, we talked about sugar, and I want to focus on all the macronutrients, or the nutrients we need in large quantities, before we get into more specific topics. So fat can be broken down into a couple of different categories, depending on their chemical composition, which I won't get too far into because that will get really complicated and really sciencey really quickly. So they're commonly and most simply known as good and bad fats, these two categories, and how I like to refer to them and tell people about them when I'm teaching about it. So good fat is called unsaturated fat. Unsaturated fat increases something called our HDL cholesterol levels and lowers our LDL cholesterol levels. And you may have heard these terms if you've ever gotten it's called a lipid panel or a blood test at the doctor's, but it's not really commonly talked about when we're talking just day to day. So we actually want our HDL levels to be high and our LDL levels to be low. So unsaturated fat is awesome because it does this. And I'll talk about that a little more in a few minutes, the LDL cholesterol. So HDL is great because it actually goes through our blood vessels and cleans up all the bad fats, and preventing plaque from forming, which can lead to high blood pressure, heart, and other heart-related problems. So we'll talk more about good fat sources in a bit, but that's kind of a really quick overview of why unsaturated fat's good. Just to recap, it kind of cleans up our blood vessels and disposes of it. So then I'm sure you've heard all about the bad rap that fat has gotten over the years. It seems like the public really likes to hang on to a certain type of food and make it like the bad guy. For example, I know it used to be fat for a really long time, and now it seems to be more carbohydrates with like the keto diet, Atkins diet, and other like low carb diets. In truth, there's no bad guy nutrient. They're all fantastic. There's a reason we have to eat them, because they do specific functions for our body. So that's just a quick whole other story, but you can eat, there's no foods we should be cutting out of our diet. So there, like I said, fat used to be the bad guy, but there are certain and it's not, but there are certain types of fat that we should limit, and those are saturated fats and trans fats. So saturated fat raises our HDL and our LDL cholesterol. So it's which is good. Like raising your HDL cholesterol is good because we want that, but raising your LDL cholesterol is not great. And this is because LDL cholesterol clogs up our blood vessels and restricting blood flow, which leads to, like I mentioned earlier, high blood pressure and heart disease. Trans fat is the worst kind of fat, and luckily, most countries have banned its use in food products, including the US. Trans fat will raise our LDL cholesterol and lower our HDL cholesterol. So, just more and more fat builds up. Not fat, plaque builds up in our blood vessels, and there's no way, nothing to clean it up with trans fat. So, and that makes it a recipe for disaster with our heart health. So, and fat has a variety of functions in our body, including heat, insulation, and digestion and absorption of other nutrients, which I think is not super commonly known. You may have heard about the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, and these are called fat soluble because they actually need fat to be absorbed properly in the body. If you needed a specific reason to make sure you're eating fat, this is a very good reason. So if we need these vitamins to survive and thrive, and without fat to help them absorb, they'll be lost in the urine and won't able to contribute to bodily functions. So that is some you may have seen in like grocery stores, like fat-free salad dressings, which are great if you're trying to cut calories. but I try to encourage salad dressings with at least some fat because salads are awesome, specifically with the dark salads made with dark leafy greens, because they are very rich in these fat soluble vitamins. Vitamin K specifically is found in like spinach or kale or those other really dark leafy green vegetables. And without a little oil to help it to be eaten with it, the vitamin K in the kale or spinach or whatever will get lost. So that's why I try to encourage people to have a little oil with their salads, or an oil based dressing or some other form of fat in their salad, just so they can get reap all the benefits of those fat soluble vitamins within the salad that you may have lost if you weren't didn't have any fat sources. And that's with other anything else that is rich in these vitamins A, D, E, and K. That doesn't mean you have to be eating fat every single time you eat these things, but just something to keep in mind. So, as I mentioned last week, if you were here last week, the USDA has national recommendations for everyone, for every nutrient. Thankfully, we can use the food label to check the fat content of our foods. I mentioned last week that the food label is really recently updated, and a lot of companies are still putting that out there. And some changes were made in the way fat is displayed on the label. As more research came out, scientists realized that it is more important to pay attention to the type of fat versus the amount of fat you consume, as I talked about earlier with the um, different types, unsaturated, saturated, and how they affect your LDL and HDL levels. And this is a really important thing to understand, because if you're a healthy individual, you don't really need to limit the amount of fat you consume. Obviously, you're not going to consume it as much as you probably would like carbohydrate, but or but you still need to um, you need to pay attention to the amount of fat you consume, but not as much as you may have had to. Sorry, that was really weird wording. Lost my train of thought halfway through there, but I hope you got the message across, and let me know if you have any questions about that. There are certain types of fat you have to limit, however, and as I previously alluded to, the saturated fat and the trans fat. So the USDA recommends that we consume less than 10% of our total calories from saturated fat each day. The nutrition facts label makes that super easy to check by looking under the percent daily value column, and that tells you the percentage of calories from a nutrient one serving size has based on a 2,000 calorie diet. I think I mentioned earlier, but trans fat, you should not be consuming any trans fat. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a moment. And that trans fat is still on the nutrition facts label, so it should say 0 every single time, but it's just there for kind of peace of mind. So, as a general rule of thumb, saturated fats are most commonly found in solid fats. So, a good way to remember saturated solid. And those are like butter, coconut oil, palm oil, lard, or vegetable shortenings like Crisco. Those are all high saturated fats. Unsaturated fats are high in oils. So, mostly plant based oils like olive oil or canola or vegetable oil. So if you do not have access to a nutrition label, you can it's pretty more often than not it's pretty easy to judge whether it's rich in saturated or unsaturated fats, depending on if it's a solid or a liquid. And that's like the first way I learned how to memorize it. And it's a really quick, easy tip to do so. And there's also and like I mentioned earlier, trans fats are banned, so there's little to no likelihood that they're in foods. They're banned all over the world. It's very understood, very well researched that they are not good for us, and we should not be consuming any of it if possible. Um, but however, by law, a company can list a product free of trans fat if there's less than half a gram per serving in it. So, vegetable shortening, some varieties of microwave popcorn, some margarines, fried fast food products, and commercial baked goods may still have a little bit of trans fat in them. And depending and due to labeling laws, they can still list 0 grams of trans fat if they have a half a gram or less per serving. And the problem with that is people aren't always eating just a serving of a baked good or a bag of chips or some French fries. So that's something to keep in mind if you're eating like a really fried food or like not so great for you commercial baked product or anything else like that, or baking with lard or vegetable shortening. Just be mindful. So this does not mean you need to cut these things out of your diet completely, but keep in mind as you're making food choices to have them in moderation as anything else. And as time goes on, many companies are switching to healthier food choices and have them in so I expect the risk of eating trans fats unknowingly will decrease significantly in the coming years. And if you don't know where to start, think about just replacing your solid fats with liquid fats whenever possible. For example, if you're sauteing, choose a vegetable oil instead of butter. And I think I've said this a million times last week and today, but everything in moderation. And if you want to increase your healthy fat consumption, which again, many studies have shown that increasing foods such as nuts and seeds, fish, coconut oil, and salad dressing, while decreasing more like butter, meat, fats that's found in meat, will lower your risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, and other heart related issues. So, and even some vegetables such as avocado are also rich in healthy fats. And I know avocado is a really big trend right now, but that's a great way to get in some healthy fats and a vegetable and all in one go. And remember, there's no reason to be scared of fat whatsoever. And like all other nutrients, our body needs it to function properly. Complete. So there, do not cut it out, but also don't eat only fat just because you think that's what I'm trying to convey. Just keep in moderation, and do what makes you feel good. So that's all I kind of plan to have to cover on fat today, my little didactic portion. I hope you learned something, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments you may have. And as always, you can email me at gstott, S-T-O-T-T, at uvacswim.org for any questions, or message me on Facebook or UVAC's page on Facebook. I'm always here to answer questions and help you be as healthy as you can be. So I'll stick around for a minute or two if you have any questions. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day and week. And also comment if you think of something that you'd like me to cover in the next couple weeks or so. All right, thank you. I'll stick around. Yeah, feel free to comment any questions you have. It doesn't have to be just about fat. It can be about anything that you've been thinking about in the past couple days or weeks. I'm happy to answer any question. And if you don't think of a question right now, you can email me later or message me on Facebook, or message UVAC on Facebook, and I'd be happy to help you out, especially if it's a more personalized question to yourself. All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but so I'll end the video for right now, but again, message me, contact me if you want certain information, tips, tricks, all sorts of things. I'm happy to help, and I hope you are all enjoying UVAC's virtual offerings. And as we go on and UVAC opens up more soon, we'll hopefully be rolling out some more nutrition content and services for all of our members and our community as time goes on. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.